The absolute state of the Order of Nine Angles, ONA/O9A. Yes, I am back with another scripted Order of Nine Angles video, after almost a year. What happened? Did you run out of contacts? No. This video must be made because the Order of Nine Angles is in an absolutely pathetic state of affairs, and given my, quote, influence, and that I will forever be inextricably bound to the ONA for the rest of my natural life, because someone had to write about, quote, insight roles, end quote, in Hostia, a concept that I've explained in detail in a previous video, and will give an epitome of its meaning later in this video for context. However, this, along with another more overt actions on my end, has made it impossible for me to not be associated with the rudderless, unnetworked mess. Well, that was until me, that is the ONA. For those who don't know who I am an investigative journalist with a history of foreign correspondent work, to put it simply, mostly in Sunni Islamic countries and communities, and worked in the private sector in intelligence as a contractor for outsourced work from mostly government agencies, ASIC, the Australian Securities and Investment Commission, being one of them and the only one of public knowledge. So when I was made aware of the ONA, I naturally, with my history in these fields and spook mystique and networking skills, very quickly became connected, and despite knowing nothing about the ONA beyond the most basic surface level understanding, I was dragged into the nightmare that is dealing with the ONA splinter cell sectarian mess of a leaderless and completely misunderstood and fractured, co-opted and complex, warring, chaos, nightmare organization that is like this by design, and that is the brand of the Order of Nine Angles. Now today I'll be laying it all out. And why should a journalist have any authority on a, quote, extremist organization out of the United Kingdom with splinter cells internationally, to put it simply? Well, that is because there is a simple thing people don't seem to understand about the ONA. You cannot, as a truly objective outsider, ever understand the ONA. The only way you can understand, until now, if you listen to, quote, get the ONA, is to become the ONA. So like any good spook, which is British and Australian slang for intelligence officer, you don't get information by talking to one asset and then dispatching the information after an interrogation guised as an interview. You must get in close, make them like you, understand them, and be sympathetic. Now, professional distance is what I've learned from experience and impossibility. You either swing from becoming too sympathetic and unobjective, or you hate them and become adversarial. It's not possible to stay objective and be good at human or human intelligence tradecraft. You have to try and not lose who you are and get as close as you possibly can to being one of them without becoming them, which is a paradox and also not really possible. This is the only way to actually make real assets or contacts, and the main reason why no one understands the ONA more than any other, along with the fact that the ONA by design is made to be unapproachable by most people, as historically, and this is important, it came out of the 1970s to the 1990s era United Kingdom, where Special Service Branch, MI5, infiltrated literally every, even remotely, political movement. From your local council activist group protesting a council estate being built to Column 88 neo-Nazi militants, you had informers and spooks in everything. This is the most important point in understanding why the ONA operates the way it does, and why it has become one of the ONA's biggest detriments in the modern world. Labyrinthos mythologicos, as the Seven Oxonians like to refer to the nature of the ONA's deliberate, confusing operational praxis, which I may explain who they are in this video, don't worry, but without this historical spook context into the Order of Nine Angles and its foundation and early history, you have no basis to understand why it operates the way it does. And you can't talk about aeonics, you can talk about aeonics as much as you like all day, the sinister dialectic, and use other obscurantism terms and mystification, but it's not that fucking complex. The early Niners knew how Special Service Branch operated from the fact that the early ONA was created by the secret work of a certain prominent rising star in the United Kingdom's neo-Nazi movements of the 1970s, specifically within Column 88, which was operated by an ex-Royal Marine and people involved in intelligence, and a certain hermeticist who most likely was either told by his mentors to infiltrate Wicca and recruit potential neo-Nazis, or more likely was created by him, that is the ONA, through his own extensive occult experimentation that was too quote cosmic to be acceptable by his neo-Nazi militant colleagues, and so via meeting up with people in Gerald Gardy and Wicca and splintered off into things like emanations and the beginning of Nous in Praxis and the formation of the Star Game, into a secret occult society where he could fully express his more esoteric, cosmic, evolutionary and aeonic perspective without causing problems with his exoteric work within Column 88, the NSM, National Socialist Movement, and the BNP, British Nationalist Party, and later down the line, Combat 18. Now, you can probably guess who I'm referring to. I won't confirm or deny that for obvious reasons. Now, most Niners who have no idea how much the importance of simplification is, like now, so I'm doing this without mystification. You want to know a real Niner, they are very clear and very straightforward with you, unless you are being, quote, character tested or having sinister empathy used on you, and other annoying but crucial methods utilized or obscured to justify bad behavior and power trips, or to try and bring out in you by force something that is needed for yourself and their own objectives, which is essentially how the ONA operates, especially the younger Niners. The older ones do it with more tact, but it's almost a violent Jungian self-actualization induced by someone else who will go to the extremes, to absolute extremes, to bring out of you what potential they see in you, even if it will fucking destroy you. If it doesn't, fantastic. If it does, oh well, then you're just a fucking opfer, essentially. But there is more tact to it than that. Now, what I'm telling you is why I have stake in this and why I even care. This has all been done to me, and is done to me constantly, however you get used to it. I have had a Niner contact, not just one do this, but many literally work out my sleep cycle, despite me being in Melbourne, Australia, and them in various locations in the United Kingdom, and the massive time zone discrepancies. They changed their sleep cycles, not just one, multiple Niners did this, without telling me, to correspond with mine. So the moment I wake up and turned on, say, Discord, bang, they'd be there. Now, one did not sleep for approximately 5 days to make sure they would always be available for me, then change their sleep cycle to mine, despite being in academia full-time. And all they did was focus on me intensely. This is, quote, sinister empathy. This individual was using this on me so extensively, and I had to have a contact tell me, quote, dude, she's using sinister empathy on you, this is what they do, end quote. To be clear, the majority of our main contacts have been women, and also transgender individuals, along with gay and repressed homosexuals, then edgelord and pretentious men. However, gender is kind of irrelevant in this, but the ONA is very feminine by nature and draws in people with quite feminine tendencies, even if it is not known to them. This is something that naturally causes issues down the line. Now, women and trans women are specifically fond of using sinister empathy, something I have never disclosed until now, and given the relevance of the feminine in the ONA, this should not be surprising to anyone that has read any of the core manuscripts between the 1970s to the 1990s. And I have had a woman approximately my mother's age, one of the 7 Oxonians, guess which one, initiate me in a overtly Freudian way. As the original Niners in their 60s and some even in their 70s in age, when they decided to bring me in as a contact, and I'm not specifically stating it's only the 7 Oxonians that are, there's also various other collectives. I'll go into that, but this is not so much a overview of the individual collectives, but how the ONA operates, the actual ONA. I'll get into the other stuff, ToBV, Tempel Ov Blood, Martinet Press, the American mess, and also the culpability that the UK has on that. I'm laying it all out because this has been a year and a half of this for me. Today I've had literally somebody threaten both ASIS and ASIO on me, even though I have never proclaimed to be involved in the Order of 9 Angles. I'm sick of it. The 7 Oxonian original 9ers in their 70s in age. Now, so essentially this, when they decided to bring me in as a contact, they worked out who in the collective would be best suited to communicate with me as the main contact within that specific network. And now, nameless therein, other people who have contacted me, which is pretty much everyone of relevance. It's not just being one person or one collective or one network. It has been multiple. And don't jump to conclusions. I've never just had one contact, and this has also caused problems. Anyway, back to it. Now, given that they essentially they profiled me via going through, because even though they're in their 60s and 70s, they still have the same sinister empathy kind of attitude, trying to understand everything about you by putting through empathy. You're trying to understand you as a human being by actually, to the extent of even acting out and trying to embody that person, to then use that to essentially turn them or bring out traits that you like in them. It is a very intense form of forced self-actualization in Jungian terms. Anyway, so they profiled me in a similar manner that FBI profilers would use on serial killers and sexual sadistic psychopaths, and given at the time I was dealing with academics from Cambridge and Oxford University, the Oxonians are also a reference to people from Oxfordshire, and they are all faculty at Oxford University, or were when they contacted me. As I said, they used sinister empathy masterfully to see who I'd respond to best as my main contact within their network, whom I am still in contact with. Now, she guided me rather than forced me to conclusions. Very Freudian and incestuous, but also making up for the fact that they knew I was involved in academia at the time, in international relations, and that I was not treated well there. My talents used to benefit the faculty and ostracize me from students without any protection from faculty or support. I was recovering from a divorce, as everyone who knows I work knew, and in a bad health situation with very overt PTSD from my time overseas and in an extremely fragile state. I was overwhelmed with suicidal ideation from academia actually at the time, from the hate of the 95% female students who assumed I was a Nazi, and yeah, it was a shit time. So they got me a mother figure for me who guides me like an academic guides their prized postgraduate student, and allowed me to come to my own conclusions, would be gentle and not interfere, and then offer a little more and a little more, tailing my inadvertent initiation into the Order of 9 Angles specifically for me. And as my better traits came forth, she would open up just a little more. And if this sounds sexual, well, that is because it is. It is fucking sexual. But it's sophisticated beyond anything people realize, especially my youthful 9A contacts. This is how the ONA operates on a person-to-person basis. Now, I went after Jake Hanrahan, another journalist who focused a lot on the ONA, among other subjects, far more successful than me, very famous. If you're watching this, Jake Hanrahan, I hope we're cool. I'm not bringing you up for any reason other than for context. But without telling them I would go after him, as Jake Hanrahan had blocked me, accusing me of being a, quote, ONA propagandist posing as a journalist, end quote. I just did it since I enjoy starting shit sometimes, and unlike everyone else, I did not get banned for doing it. Stormfront had a whole conspiracy on this. Anyway, I naturally impressed my maternal figure being a good boy, and my Oxonian being a good soft money me dom, rewarded me for my courageous act by connecting me to David Myatt himself via various networks in the UK I can never talk about or disclose. Now, this is sinister empathy. This is the ONA. This is why I care and why I have been fighting a war in the background with what this video is really about. The absolute state of the ONA, the brand, the Order of 9 Angles. Now, everyone should know about Martinet Press, the Tempel of Blood, the ToBV, Joshua Sutter, the American co-opting of the Order of 9 Angle brand from the UK after the early 2000s, co-opting of the brand and core ONA material by ONA.org, Fenrir, Chloe, etc. And then the escalation and use of it by accelerationists and FBI assets and informants like Joshua Sutter, who owns Martinet Press, ran Tempel Ov Blood, informed on a lot of fucking people. the silence of the quote old guard. This is what this is really about. How a movement that came from some Nazis and Wicca, feminists, academics and anarchists became Iron Gates by Martinet Press, which was written by the FBI asset and most likely FBI agent Joshua Sutter. As I've gone through his payment and the information reported in the media, but also in the Department of Justice documents and Ethan Mauser case, which was an entrapment case by the FBI, of which Joshua Sutter gave a autistic kid essentially a 45-year prison sentence for being essentially radicalized by Joshua Sutter and kind of forced into it was a open and shut case of entrapment, but you know, this case was finalized in March 2023, and that's when a lot of people started to disappear, even in the UK, as the heat was coming down when he got that, even though it had nothing to do with the UK Niners. Anyway, happens to correspond, that is Sutter's informant money in the DOJ documents, to the annual salary of an intelligence officer, accounting for currency conversions from USD to AUD. It is the usual starting salary for a foreign intelligence officer for ASIS, or the Australian Secret Intelligence Service in Australia. So that makes me think, maybe Sutter is more than just an informant. Anyway, how do you go from the sophistication of the Sinister Tarot by Richard Malt or Christos Beast to vampirism spelt with a W in the pedophile networking cells that is the ToBV, or the Tempel Ov Blood Vampire, whatever the fuck it's called? How do you go from a default quintet to fucking Iron Gates? This is what I was wanting to understand when I started this investigation. And I decided, fuck it. I'll have to get as close as possible to being in the ONA without ever becoming ONA to do this. Oh, what a naive and misguided fool I was. Jake Hanrahan, congratulations, you jumped the gun. I am an ONA propagandist, but I have to be. We all have our roles, and I have a personal, complex, guilt and trauma-based need to, once I realize the extent of how bad the other side of the ONA is, the co-opted Martinet Tempel Ov Blood bullshit, not just co-opted for an entrapment scheme and money pot by the FBI to be used to create and entrap far-right terrorists in order to keep their government funding to their far-right counterintelligence ring, counter-terrorism ring. Well, now it has been co-opted once again since 2018 to 2020 by pedophile networks who use Sutter's Martinet Press style brand to create fake nexions, which is a term that essentially just means gate. And there are no nexions, by the way. There are only collectives, at least in the actual ONA, as a nexion is a literal temple, but it can also be a person. It can also be something far more esoteric. Read now, soon you'll understand what I'm talking about. Anyway, so to essentially use the brand to create fake nexions in order to recruit stupid teenage adult boys and expose them to child pornography, and then groom them to then use them as expendable opfer, and that's what you are, teenage boys who are doing this, you fucking edgelord retards. That's what you are. You'll opt for cat paws by the older pedophiles to get to the underage girls. You are literally a fucking useful idiot to be expended. And boy, have a lot of you been expended. And I did have some empathy for you, but the amount of fucking child pornography that you fucking edgelord retards. If you're 16 years old, you're old enough to go to war and you're old enough to fucking die. World War One, you're old enough to fucking go to the Western Front. And if you started crying, you didn't want to go over the fucking trench. The officer brought you out and then next morning shot you while you spent the night crying for your mother. So you're old enough to go to prison and get raped by a pack of, quote, I can't say it, but you know what I mean, in prison, in all honesty, because you're old enough to fucking die at 16, or at least you are in the UK and Australia in foreign wars. And I'm sure it's the same case in the US with parental consent with regards to the Army, the US Marine Corps, etc. So yeah, you use as cat paws to get to the underage girls, and then they've radicalized and created even more pedophiles from sexually undeveloped young men. But I have no mercy and no compassion for you, because I know what you've done, and yeah, you're old enough to die. Anyway, now this is not just to groom and use to create child pornography for the purposes of, quote, initiation. That's the way that they utilize it, to get into their Nexion. It is used to create sexualized child abuse of extreme self-harm of very young teenage and preteen girls. Worse than anything I've ever mentioned in my child abuse video or ever really publicly. Now 764, a pedophile network, an international one, who are involved in creating many of these fake ONA Nexions, mostly by slightly older pedophiles, to bait the edgy teenage girls into it, essentially by using Martinet, ToBV, Agnes Point Press, etc. material to justify and create a endless supply of new child porn videos of girls, usually between the age of around 11 to 14 years old. And then they hack, dox, threaten, drag them into Telegram groups of 1,000 people, watching you at 12, masturbating on camera, and 1,000 people laughing at you, a child, a little girl, and your body, telling you to kill yourself, doxing your address, and if you don't kill yourself on camera, now your family are going to get all the fucking videos. Now, I've seen this is real. I've bore witness. And watched 11-year-olds slitting their wrists vertically open on stream to pedophiles, fountaining blood so much the entire bathroom floor is drenched. I'm talking about a fucking child. I could no longer stay uninvolved. And to be clear, I don't give a fuck about the fucking brand name of the Order of Nine Angles. What I care about is that it has been initiated by the UK, and the hell that has come with that has actually made me, I apologize, I will repeat that. What I care about is what I have gotten out of being inadvertently dragged into the ONA has actually made me a better person. And that in Naos and the mystical system of the ONA, there's actually a lot of fucking value there. It is the only system I can even feel right being involved in anymore. Thelema is dead. I have no faith in using the Shem Hamifaresh, the various names of God, etc., Tetragrammaton, 72-fold name, when I can no longer even fake in thinking this watered-down mess of Aleister Crowley's amazing work, to even trick myself into believing it anymore, and the absolute pretentious cunts in the OTO and the political bullshit and all the internal politics in these fucking groups. It has literally killed it, and Chaos Magic, all of it. It's lost all meaning. It has absolutely no meaning anymore. It's worthless. Other than the Eastern esoteric traditions that I won't name, that I have a resonance with, any magical philosophy or movement has been fucking ruined. And as an existentialist, as someone who is extremely complex and refined, Satanism, be it LaVey or Tempel Ov Blood, etc., is too watered down for me. Neo-paganism is fine, but I'm mixed ethnicity, Eastern European and other, so say Nordic paganism or Slavic. I'm not just Nordic, I'm not just Slavic. And it was written down by Christians anyway, so I'll stick with existentialism, essentially. But the ONA opened, especially with Naos, more than anything else, enough to build on something. It has value, and yes, I admit it. I am a fucking niner, and I am inadvertently responsible for causing absolute chaos in the ONA and the UK, and for connecting people through me inadvertently with each other. But none of these people I have associated with, many of whom are not so much unhappy with me, but are wanting me to be or become something for them that I don't particularly want to be, or I refuse to be, or for taking personally too much of the suffering they've put me through, when it's part of the process of the internal mechanism of physis, or of growing or growth within the organization. But people forget, I never wanted to be a niner. I was actually dragged into this, and then via realizing what was happening with these pedophile networks and how no one in the media gave a fuck enough to do anything about this, and because these girls are, quote, neo-Nazis, so I guess the 11-year-old deserves to die slowly, painfully, and horribly to masturbating pedophiles on live streams, so that their parents will never see, essentially, finding their daughter dead and never realizing why, or how giving them access to a smart device opened them up to be groomed, sexually radicalized, abused, sexualized, made into child porn videos, and then self-harm, and then, you know, actually killed them, murdered by cowards who were too pussy to actually kill someone in real life. So they target children, usually from Eastern European backgrounds, and manipulate them with the help of 1,000 other sexually inadequate types to feel powerful. Fucking pieces of shit. So I can no longer stay objective, and I have to thank a young man for networking me into seeing just how bad this situation is, even if it was done for purely selfish reasons, which I know it was not. You pry into my personal life too much, but I'm sorry, you are essentially a good person. So if anyone follows me on Twitter, you'll see the absolute chaos and war I have been fighting essentially constantly against pedophile and edgelord niners, not because I want to, but because I am morally fucking obligated to. This is what this video is truly about, and why I care about the ONA. and what it actually is without mystification, and to show the massive discrepancy between the Order of Nine Angles collectives and individuals I associated or associate with, and the co-opted brand name, recognized networks of pedophiles and edgelord idiots internationally that have no subtlety, no actual knowledge, and no purpose other than being assets to fuel the intelligence services, security services, counter-terrorism units, and help push more totalitarian laws through Parliament in the case of Australia and the UK, and through Congress in America, and to fuel the creation of a constant stream of child pornography, child ritual abuse, sexualization of minors, abuse of children, violent sexual abuse, violent self-harm, for pedophile and pedophile networks. So from the sophistication of sinister empathy and on a person-to-person basis that I mentioned before at the start of this video, to you want to be part of our Nexion, you need to incise 333 into your cunt. Literally. That's what it is. Now, to be clear, there are no Nexions, the collectives and individuals. I think I mentioned this before, but they're spelled with a K because of the Welsh influence. And also the fact that they are networks of loosely connected individuals in decentralized leaderless organization that operates only with each other for a higher purpose. Point being, I am not completely innocent in all this, nor are the collectors associated. The ONA's biggest problem is not the fact that it's being co-opted by pedophiles, it's the constant sectarianism, power tripping, special service branch interference, Atomwaffen Division, militant Nazism, drugs, repressed homosexuality induced petty bullshit that has been the nail in the fucking coffin. Since I started writing the script for this video, I was reconnected with some of my old contacts. Since, however, when I do anything or make a post that I'm going to make a video on the ONA again, people start coming out of the fucking woodwork, and also by pure chance. Now, I'm not a petty person. I understand that some of the bullshit I have been put through is expected and part of the process, even though I never considered myself a niner, and the fact that to niners that I serve the sinister dialectic, that is enough to make me fair game. And my own personal physis is obvious to anyone who has followed this hero's journey of mine the past year and a half. I was going to be more critical on the fucking power tripping, etc. But major changes have been happening in the background, and people are working together for good or for ill in a way that is far more conducive to a resurgence of the ONA circa 1970s to 1990s, possibly. But this also causes more problems, as unfortunately I have been networked essentially with everyone before they connected with each other. So I know things about people on an individual basis that the other would be very unaware of. And as I am not here to start petty bullshit, I can see what's happening and have just realized my new position in this strange, tragic comedy that I have been dragged into. So I am no longer a journalist, essentially. I'm no longer an inadvertent propagandist going, oh, it's better for the old ONA to have its value seen, or at least somewhat understood, than the new ToBV, edgelord, adolescent, embarrassing but disgusting for its abusive design on young men and boys and teenage girls and underage girls. So to push people towards NOWS rather than Martinet Press, to move essentially young women away from being abused, is something I have had to do, a lesser of two evils. But now I'm in essentially the awkward position of being an intelligence agency for the Order of Nine Angles where I fucking know everyone, I can see what's going on, and I have to weigh up what level of interference, if any, I make, and how that affects this complete mess of an organization that's chaos that isn't really an organization, as I've explained over and over again, and my own position. So I have essentially decided to put out a proposition to the Order of Nine Angles, or at least the ONA that stemmed from the original out of the UK, and all the various collectives, and a strategy on how to actually move forward. And if the intelligence services are watching, I am not in any way accountable for anything that is happening. It's not my fault if people contact me, and I do some basic investigations, and people are desperate. And it's not my fault if the press won't cover things, and I had to get more involved. This doesn't stem under any form of recklessness. If anything, I have de-accelerated a lot of shit, so essentially I've done your fucking job for you, so don't give me any bullshit. Moving forward, the strategy. It props the pedophile problems in the UK. Well, in the US, the UK is not exactly innocent in this either, as Fenrir Volume 3, Number 2, the quote, girl goddess, end quote, which someone made me painfully aware of, has to be addressed and is very problematic. UK Niners, you know what I'm fucking talking about. You're not innocent in all this. You can't hide behind Hostia and their anti-child abuse. Not that Fenrir is exactly reliable, but this is in the quote, you know, good era of Fenrir publications. Fuck off. So don't tell me this is some new retyped edition. It is a literal scan of the original publication hand-typed. So no, the UK is not innocent in creating this mess either. Now, to quote a question I was asked on Twitter regarding a strategy for the ONA going forward, Cope Ascetic gave me permission to quote him and show a screenshot for context of his tweet, and for that I thank you. Now, at Cope_Ascetic on Twitter, he asked, or they asked, do you feel that the core O9A tradition is valuable enough to be attempted to salvage, or has it become such a monstrosity that it should simply be allowed to dissolve? Since 28th of May 2024, and I replied, 1970s to early 90s ONA MSS are worth reading and a genuinely amazing mystic tradition. But other than Richard Malt / Christos Beast, nothing good has come out of the ONA brand since, with the exception of a few collectives of individuals trying to reconsolidate the sepentary system. But it needs to be rebranded into something secret, and ONA has to die. Let Martinet, ToBV, fake Nexions, pedophile, 764 cunts have it. Call it something else, and continue the tradition. It's meant to be a fucking secret society, so stop power tripping and Labyrinthos Mythologicos bullshit. Dump the fucking brand and keep it secret. As far as I am concerned, I am so disillusioned with the ONA, I'll take Richard Malt and the old MSS and keep it historical. I'll defend it for historical purposes, but fuck the ONA. No wonder Richard Malt is a fucking hermit. End quote from my Twitter. Now, to quote an ONA contact of mine who does not really remember who they were quoting when they told me this, idiots mystify, geniuses simplified. Now, I think people need to take a step back involved in the ONA and to see the absolute state of the ONA. And here is the harsh reality. What I said on Twitter is enough and true. It needs to be rebranded. All you do is run around each other, networking, and spending almost all your time online trying to consolidate power, while you're fucking irrelevant. Even the most influential people involved in the ONA, or allegedly involved, are irrelevant. To quote someone, David Myatt is boring. End quote. Thornwind15 gets a few hundred views on Twitter if I or Jay Canraham responds to them. These fake pedophile accounts and Nexions get thousands. The misguided people who think the ToBV material is really hardcore and cool and edgy don't seem to realize they are promoting pedophile networks. The sole purpose of it is to recruit young boys by older pedophiles, turn them into pedophiles, to then recruit teenage girls, to then create a never-ending swarm of child pornography. They also use, by the way, there's a lot of girls into this. As I said in the child abuse video, the new cool thing for the Zoomers and these edgy fucking things is to be a fucking pedophile. I'm not kidding, I wish I was joking, but this is the world we live in. So people promoting this shit, you're promoting the absolute most disgusting pedophile networks I have seen in the West, trying very hard to be the Korean, in particular South Korean pedophile networks, which are the absolute worst and most disgusting I've ever seen, and kill a lot of very young girls, and it's absolutely horrible. But you do something long enough, you start getting good at it. Korea's a small place, but you know, the world is becoming smaller, and it's very easy to find stalkers, and these guys are hackers because they're cowards. That's the only thing they can fucking do. They dox you, they work out where you are. If you're getting involved with any of these fucking groups and you're not running VPNs constantly, you're not constantly running, you're fucked. One little piece of advice, any young women watching, if they've got anything on you, CP, any of that shit, and they threaten your family, threaten to expose that to everyone you know, it's better for them to do that than for what will happen if you don't. Because inevitably that leads to them getting caught and there being some form of justice, and also for your own personal safety, they actually won't, kill you. Yeah, there's some people stupid enough, but no. Yeah, some Roma gypsy got fucking killed by someone associated with wanting to be part of some Russian Nexion, some German immigrant in Romania. I've gone into this before, but yeah, it's easy to kill a homeless woman. They're not going to kill you. They'll threaten to, yes. But down the line, there's nothing to actually be ashamed of with this, because these men know and women know exactly what they're fucking doing. And they have groomed and done everything to put you in this position. And you are a child, and what was done to you is wrong. And if this is happening to you, get out. Don't worry about their fucking threats. Block all of them. Disconnect. If your family see it, if you've self-harmed, all of that stuff. If they drag you into Telegram groups, all this shit, no, don't. Just disconnect. Yeah, they might get people in real life who know you, because that's one of the other ways they operate. I'll keep this a bit more concise to end this, but don't let them win. You'd be surprised at what a lot of people have had to go through, and how much child abuse and trauma people have gone through in their lives and made it through, and the extent of threats and violence. My point being, see it as a form of physis, of growth and becoming into an adult. And trust me, no one will ever manipulate and use you ever again. And that is a powerful fucking lesson to have learned at a very young age, especially if you're a woman. So to continue, all these people promoting this material, not realizing they're promoting pedophilia, and this isn't satanic panic shit, for fuck's sake. I can't even show anything, pretty much, without getting banned. But this is happening. This is real. This is fucking real. I can show you a glimpse, and I will, of what we're dealing with, really. And so my point being, everyone who's actually part of the sinister tradition, you are completely irrelevant compared to all of these groups. Completely irrelevant. And to the people that talk about the ONA or have an interest in it, who only see the ToBV shit, they're more influential than anybody involved. Now, I still get threatened by people to call the intelligence services on me as if they are not aware of my existence already, over the fucking ToBV, the SF, Satanic Front, another group. Oh, by the way, SF pussies, you post pictures of Al-Aqsa with 333 over, and I link some of my Taliban contacts in, and TTP contacts in, going, I think they might be offended by this, and you block me. I thought you guys were fucking hardcore. I thought you hated people from these kinds of places. Anyway, I can't help myself. Martinet Press, 764, ToB inspired or associated Nexion, wannabe edgelord niners, and pedophiles. Even though I am one of the only fucking people who has exposed people in 764, the most dangerous network, with my face exposed this whole time. And yes, Thorman 15 is correct. The ONA is dead. You are irrelevant. Everyone is irrelevant. I won't name names, but we are all networked. We all know each other or have directly communicated. No one fucking cares what you do. It's quote boring. They only care about me because they are pissed off I exposed some of them. And they want to think that they are fucking with me and scaring me and all that shit. And as I have a face, and if you don't have the maturity to not care about the brand name and ditch it and keep the material, but reincorporate it using different terminology and keep it fucking secret, then you're not a niner. You're just in it for personal gain from a brand you did not even fucking create, because you don't have the ability to make something yourself and make it amazing. No. And build off it. You literally if you won't drop the fucking brand, all you've done is waste time and power trip. You're nothing. You get no traction. No one who talks about this shit has any traction, who has any form of actual knowledge on the ONA. Because no one gives a fuck. So, where's the art, by the way? Collectors. Yeah, I know I'm being fucking critical, but I'm sick of this shit. Where's the music? Every time I try and create something, I'm distracted by people wanting me to essentially spook for them. If I am not serving their purposes, I am better off completely fucking suppressed. I don't want this. I don't want influence within the fucking ONA, because I never wanted to be involved at all. I just wanted to find out what the fuck was going on. However, as I've said, the ONA don't operate that way. It's by design to drag you into involvement, even if you don't want to be. If you're useful, they're gonna fucking find a way to use you. That's the thing though, what happens if someone who's useful becomes more influential than you are? So I just want to essentially make music be left the fuck alone, you know? But you have to be careful what you get good at, and I'm good at this. And I accept that. And I have had to lay this all out and show people what is happening, as I have very bad complex PTSD, especially around women and children. There is a scene in the film 1917, something I'm definitely going to do an analysis on, where the protagonist finds a woman and her baby hiding in the basement ruins of a French village, and he happens to have some milk which he finds earlier in the film, and he gives it to the baby, and then he needs to leave, and the Frenchwoman begs him to stay, and being a good British stiff upper lip soldier, he says, "I'm sorry," and leaves, never looking back, walking out into the hell outside that he is surrounded by and confronted with and must face alone. And I have been in the same situation, only I did not have milk. I had Saudi Arabian Marlboro Red cigarettes. And unlike the film, the baby was dead. I offered the mother a cigarette and said sorry and left. Surrounded by the orange-tinted hell I was confronted with and had to face. I now know why I say I'm sorry to women constantly for no reason. This is not an isolated incident. I have walked away from a woman trying to put her child, who was still alive, back together, who was ripped in half, and she was using a blanket to hold in his entrails, essentially, while he was still alive. The boy was around approximately 8-9 years old. I feel nothing. It's not the child dying that haunts me, it's the way the mother stared at me while she was holding him together, as if I could do anything. And why me when there were 2 other guys with me, way more seasoned? And I said, I am sorry, and lit a cigarette and walked away. I can't walk away anymore. And I bore witness to this world. I have really bore witness. Edgelord Niners, young Niners, some of the older ones, pedophiles, and some with potential but lacking awareness of where to put it, and perspective and maturity. None of you have seen the real world. The numinous way of pathomethos. You don't need to do what I did, but at least learn from the knowledge gained by suffering from those who have actually suffered in the real fucking world and actually seen real human suffering. The real world is fucking hell. Hell. And when it's right in front of you, it's a different story than the fucking internet. So step back for a moment and think about the bigger picture, away from the internet and into what matters, your work, your real work. Create, and the cycles of every organization, this will be a rebuild a better one from the remnants of the fucking ashes. I will now end this and possibly show some things that 764 and associated pedophile networks are like, but naturally I can't really show much, as I have to be careful for doxing and all these other reasons. But it is important that you, dear viewer, bear witness to what is actually happening, Niner or not, the absolute state of the order of 9 angles, and why it is a lost one. That is my perspective. Get some real world experience before you start trying to fucking change it into your own fucking image. I'm so sick of this shit. Anyway, regards, Interzone Analysis.